I do very, very little in the way of preparation for this. Um, I try to avoid digging too deep, but I did sort of 5 minutes earlier, but I ended up drifting off into the Pie Wars videos, and I got very distracted watching some of them, thinking, "Oh wow." The one that really got me was the chap who'd done one that looked like Johnny Five from Short Circuit.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. That is a hell of a robot.
yeah,
It is very heavy.
right. Because I mean, it looked fantastic. It just it just looks so agile as it moved around. And I've only ever had one attempt at doing a robot in the past, using the Cam Jam kit. Interestingly enough, and I was just cobbling bits together to put some mechanics into an old canine from Doctor Who.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it just I have very limited knowledge, so it just really didn't get going for me. But I was looking at that, thinking, "Wow, brilliant!" Because it's amazing what people come up with, really, for these things. And I just kept clicking on more, and that was it. And about 20 minutes later, I thought, "Okay, I need to I need to focus now." But yeah, so Mike Horne and Tim Richardson, thanks ever so much for joining the Just a Couple of Jerks podcast. And also, in a special way, that you're the first time we've had a couple of guests on. So thanks ever so much.
Well, thanks for inviting us.
Yes, no problem.
It's great. So it's going to be interesting. As I say, we've not had a couple of guests on before. So I'm going to kind of fire out some things. We'll get chatting away and get a feel for how it works with having more than one person. And so the idea behind Just a Couple of Jerks, if you don't know, is that it's kind of normalizing people in the community, just getting to know people beyond what we kind of know from our Twitter um, accounts and that sort of thing, and just to dig a bit deeper, find out about really how we got into IT, and if we have kind of things that are success stories, and also where things have gone wrong for us and stuff like that. But you guys have been, so I kind of see you as a little double act in a way. I don't know if that's right or not, but you've kind of known each other for a while.
Yeah, we've known each other for about, what is it? Is it about 8 years now?
About 8 years, yeah. It wasn't much before Mike started the Cambridge Jam, or restarted the Cambridge Jam. Um, I attended those as a friend and as a helper. Mike and I knew each other through church, but we hadn't really spoken much before that, and discovered that we both got this interest in Raspberry Pis.
Yeah, so it's kind of kickstarted from that sort of that little circuit board, effectively. Yeah. And Mike, were you had you set something up then, Mike? Was that how it all got going?
Yeah, so there'd been a couple of Cambridge Raspberry Jams, but when the Pi first came out, but then it stopped, and I just thought it was ridiculous that there wasn't a jam in the place where the Pi was devised and developed, and I just thought, well, let's try and start it up again. So I found a venue and completely failed to visit it beforehand, which was a major mistake because I then couldn't find it.
All right.
And the first jam I did was about 30 people in one room. And then the next one was slightly bigger at a slightly different place. And then Tim came on board, and then we started getting sort of 100, 150, 200 people turning up.
Wow. And Mike, we met at the Covent Garden Jam.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I kind of know numbers and how that's managed, because I think there's about 80 people used to come to those. So a couple of hundred, that's quite an undertaking.
Yeah. When you hit a couple of hundred, suddenly you've got a catering problem.
yeah, yeah.
Lots of problems, but yeah, they were quite successful, very successful.
And how many kind of mentors did you have in those sessions?
So we did a mixture of talks. So we had people just doing presentations, and then we ran workshops. And the workshops you tended to get one leader and then three or four helpers, just to um, make sure there was enough people helping that people didn't get lost.
Yeah, yeah. It's an exhausting but fulfilling undertaking, isn't it?
Yes, definitely is.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you were at the end of the day, but I was always shattered, and
Oh yeah,
yeah,
Definitely, yeah.
because it's not just mentoring; it's the physical aspect, isn't it, of setting it all up, shifting the kit around, the desks, the table, the chairs, everything, isn't it?
oh yes, yeah. We ended up buying these foldable tables just so that we had enough tables to go around.
Yeah, but lugging them around, and then at the end, it's like, okay, everyone's gone. It's suddenly quiet, but you can't hang around, can you? You've got to start putting everything away, packing up. People are arriving with massive suitcases full of stuff, and
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. So how long? Were they a few hours long? Were they each of those?
I think we did about was it 10:30 to about 4 o'clock?
Oh
Something like
wow.
that, yeah. So it was sort of about 5 or 6 hours. Um, Lots of talks in that time, as well as having the workshops going on. And we also introduced the idea of having vendors along to the event because we felt the Raspberry Pi being fairly new, people a lot of people didn't know what to do with them. And so we wanted to give them an opportunity to sort of expand their horizons of what they could do by bringing people along who were able to sell them things.
Totally, yeah. And did they work well then? That sort of having that vendor opportunity.
Definitely, I think so. I think so. I think it made Cam Jam the event it was because of the mixture of show and tell, vendors, talks, and workshops. The four different aspects of it kept everybody busy.
Yeah, and I think that was a similar concept at the pie parties, wasn't it? You had a mix of sort of vendors and people doing show and tell things.
Yeah, we organised the first two for the foundation, and they liked what Cam Jam was like. They just wanted something like that, but a lot bigger. Unfortunately, we ended up doing it at the Cambridge Computer Lab, and that's kind of where we ended up with Pi Wars eventually as well.
Yeah. So is the Cambridge Jam still going then?
It is, but Mike and I no longer head that up. We've been doing Cam Jam since 2013, isn't it, Mike?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
And so that's sort of 6 7 years. Plus doing the Pie Party, plus doing Pie Wars, plus doing the Cam Jam Educates, um, and having our own families. It got to a stage that we thought, okay, um, do with a bit of a rest. We also needed new blood, and we're very fortunate that one of the guys who looked after the venue, the Cambridge Institute of Astronomy, he became a good friend of ours, and now he's looking after the venue for the place that Cam Jam is now, and has got friends and other characters that we've met organising these events who have kindly taken over that side of it.
and we go along and help and support them in any way we can, and it's really nice to sort of see it being picked up again.
Yeah, it's one of those things, isn't it, where it's great doing it, but it does take up a lot of time. So it's balancing that out, and 7 years is a long time to be doing it. And I know that the Covent Garden Jam was a couple of years. Seemed like longer.
Yeah.
Um, but times change, and we had to get people in to help and assist with organising. Brian, I think, who you probably know quite well, um, assisted with that, and Nick Hughes as well
Yeah.
got involved there with Frank. Um, But finding the venue's tricky, isn't it? That's always hard work. So initially you had a venue, you couldn't find it. Was it something that you could get hold of easily?
The first one was I think it was the Institute of Mathematical Sciences was the first one,
Yep.
and that came out of just having contact with somebody who happened to work there. And he sort of said, I hear you want to start the jam up again. How about doing it where I work? So that was handy. And then the second venue was somebody who came to the first one. And then the Institute of Astronomy, we knew we needed something bigger, and Andy Beatty suggested it, and we visited it and thought this is ideal.
Yeah, yeah. That's great. I mean, it seemed to be in London because I was looking at one point for Code Club venues.
Mm.
That always seemed tricky to find somewhere that was willing to do it. And I know, so I live in a similar area to Femi's mum, Grace, and she managed to set up the South London Jam. But she said the hardest thing for her was finding a venue, finding someone that understood what it was about, because you couldn't be paying for these things because you didn't have the money to pay for them. It was all voluntary. Um, so it's interesting that you managed to get somewhere like that, because that seemed to be a very hard sell at times. I mean, I tried the venue that Grace actually got in the end, and they were like, right, okay, it's so much per hour, and this sort of thing. It was like, yeah, that's not going to happen, really.
Yeah, you sort of go up to them and they say that, and you think, yeah, no.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So you did the Cam Jam kit as well. So there's a few kits. Can you tell me about those?
Well, yeah, the first jam that Mike and I did, the way we had workshops, we put together. I ordered a load of parts from AliExpress, and spent a few nights before the event putting them all into bags. And we sold them to the people who were doing the courses at the event for pretty much what they cost. One of the vendors we had there, Jamie from the Pie Hut, suggested that he actually get them put together and sell them. We had the worksheets sort of written. They were cobbled together from all sorts of material from all sorts of places. Um, so yeah, we looked into it, looked into the costing of it, and thought, well, we needed some funding to run the event. Despite the venue being free, there are quite a few expenses to run the thing. To buy the kit that we could use at the events. And so we thought, yeah, let's try. We thought we'd maybe sell, I don't know, 10 or 15, was it, Mike?
Yeah, my estimates was a bit out. It reminded me of doing estimates at work.
And a few thousand kits later,
Wow,
yeah,
slightly off then.
yes, just a bit. But yeah, the first kit was really quite basic. This was the early days of the Raspberry Pi. We wanted to give people a way, just an initial learning of how to connect things up to the Raspberry Pi. Which, if they hadn't had the GPIO pins, which allegedly they weren't going to have at first, if they hadn't got those, then I don't think the Pi would have been anywhere near as successful as it is. Physical computing, when you see um, someone light up an LED for the first time, their face lights up. They've controlled something in the real world that they've made, they've put together.
Well, this is it. This is exactly. When I was chatting with Les Pounder. I was talking about how, as a kid, so my dad was an electrical engineer. I just didn't understand electronics at all, and electrical circuits. And then he used to try and help me out, and I'd be like, "It makes no sense to me, this." But then when I started playing with the Raspberry Pi, I was like, "Okay, let's try this." And lighting up that first LED light, I was like, "I can do it." I understand what this resistor symbol means now.
Yeah.
Simple things.
Yeah, my dad was an electrical engineer as well. And again, I had no idea about electronics. In fact, I didn't know anything about electronics while I was writing the worksheets. Um, I had to teach myself to write the worksheets. Yes, I did crib off quite a few other people. The way I wrote it was I needed to explain it to myself. If I could explain it to myself, if it could make sense, then hopefully it would have made sense to the users.
And of course, that was ideal for me when it came to reading them and testing them and proofreading them. It was a case of, right, let's start from first principles and assume that you know as little as you actually do.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
Keep it simple.
Yeah,
yeah,
And I kind of call them idiot guides, and that's terrible, really. But those sort of things where it's step by step. Keep it simple. Explain absolutely everything, because there's nothing worse than a little step where it misses something, or it's not explained well, and that throws you, doesn't it? And that's like, I can't now do this.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
and one of the important things that I know Tim wanted to get across in the worksheets is you're doing this, but why are you doing this, and how are you doing this? And I think a lot of the trouble with some of the worksheets that other people do, they show you how to light up an LED, but they don't really explain why you need that resistor, and why you connect it to that pin but not that one, and why you don't connect those two pins together ever.
Yes. Yes. I mean, this goes back to that conversation with my dad. Why do I need the resistor? I've no idea. And then finally with the LEDs, I mean, I kind of knew afterwards, but it all fits together in a simple way, and then you can start to expand that, can't you, with other ideas, and that's where the classic traffic lights
Yeah,
test comes in and things like that. And we were doing, I was doing this at a school in Brixton as part of the Code Club, and trying this out, and they just loved it. Absolutely, it's that, like you say, it's that pleasure on their faces when they do this for the first time, and they have that control.
I can remember one of the initial workshops that we ran, and me and Tim were actually in the room for some reason. I think we were short of helpers for a change, and it was think we were using the Pibrella add-on board, which was it's basically three lights and a button and a buzzer, which is basically what the EduKit is. And I remember distinctly somebody doing the first light, and then suddenly they went off script and they didn't follow the worksheet at all, and they had a fantastic time, and they came out grinning. And I remember thinking, that's what we want. We actually want people to think outside of what they've been told to do and just experiment with the thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They saw that in so many of the workshops where they got the initial bits, and weren't too worried about doing the rest of the worksheets. They had the basics and they just wanted to do their own thing, which is perfect, absolutely perfect. It's exactly what we wanted.
Yeah, start to play, start to push it a bit more and see what you can do with it. Yeah,
Yeah.
brilliant. So were you kind of like, when you're selling, 1,000 of these kits, you're like, oh wow, um, that was unexpected.
Yeah.
It was.
And is it a case of, right, okay, what can we do now?
Well, in when we set up the first workshops, we actually had the basics of the second EduKit um, in those workshops. So they were the motion sensors and
Mm,
things like that. Um, but yeah, the basic kit's great, but we wanted to take it the next step further, um, and get them really not just lighting LEDs, making a buzzer, but actually getting input into the Pi that wasn't just a button. So we looked at what sensors there were out there, looked at what prices we could get them for, and put a kit together with that.
mm. And then I suppose that just kind of builds up then into the third kit, which is the robot kit, isn't it?
Yeah, again, robotics has been it's been the cool thing to do with the Raspberry Pi from the very beginning, and we just thought there's not really a basic kit where it's a bit Heath Robinson in what you end up with, but there's nothing to bring everything together and to develop those skills.
Yeah, what I loved about that kit is that you used every part of it, didn't you?
Yeah,
It's not just the innards, the mechanical bits, and it's the box as well.
yeah.
Yeah,
That's the body of the robot, isn't it? It's brilliant.
yeah. I mean, that was done on purpose because we didn't. There were other kits available that had perspex chassis that you screwed the motors to and things like that, and they all turn out looking exactly the same. What we wanted, and we actually spoke to um, people at the foundation about this in their education department, and said, look, we want to do this sort of kit. Can we have your ideas? What do you like about these ideas? Do we do a chassis? What sort of thing? And they said, no, don't do it. Don't do a chassis because um, that will make each robot fairly unique. Yes, the box was rather useful to to build a chassis out of, but we had people building them out of Crocs. Um, and it's just
Remember
basically
that one?
anything that they could get hold of. And that would actually bring in so much, bring the steam into STEM, bring the art into the electronics and the programming, which it all goes together. It's all creative. Even the programming is, in my mind, can be creative. So yeah, why not? Um, get them to come up with something totally different for the chassis.
So yeah, absolutely, and yeah, I mean that's the thing. I mean, like I say, I ended up shoving it into a canine dog, and giving that a go. And there is a bit of footage of it working briefly,
Well,
but
I have one sitting up next near me, waiting to be for that to happen because it broke, and I need to fix it with a Raspberry Pi and an EduKit. I just haven't got around to it yet.
it's the perfect opportunity, isn't it?
Yeah,
And it's hours of enjoyment really, and that's what I love about it. And I mean, my programming skills are hit and miss. So Python wise, I was kind of playing and dabbling. Did I use a controller to? I think I must have used some kind of controller. Oh, no, maybe not. Maybe I was using cursor keys on the keyboard. I can't remember now, but it's great fun. Was that the last kit that was produced then?
Yeah, we have got an idea for another one, which is a bit more to do with more sensory than it is robotics, but we just haven't had time to do it yet.
Yes, time. That's always a tricky one, isn't it?
Yeah.
yeah.
And we did go through as a redesign of the motor controller board for the EduKit 3 because the original one was done by Gareth over at Fortronics.
Okay, and what would that involve then?
Oh, it involved Jamie had somebody working for him, Rachel, who could design circuits. So she designed something that was similar but was slightly improved.
So thinking about robots now. So as we mentioned earlier, you guys are involved in Pi Wars. So is Pi Wars your idea together? Is it something that you came up with, or is that something that you've taken on board, like the raspberry jams, or was it devised by yourselves?
The story goes that we were at a Raspberry Jam one day, and it was a cam jam, and Tim just happened to say in passing, "Are you a fan of BBC's Robot Wars?" And I said, "Yeah, I've watched it since the second season," and he said, "How about we do something like that, but with the Raspberry Pi?" And we sort of worked it through and sort of said, right, we don't want it to be destructive because we want kids to get involved, and the last thing you want is a robot destroying itself in the first challenge and tears all round,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
including from the organisers.
yeah, yeah.
So we came up with this idea of a non-destructive challenge-based one that was more like the first series of Robot Wars, rather than the later ones where the first one they had obstacles and that kind of thing.
Rather than just full on war. Yeah, yeah. So how long you been doing those for then?
First one was 2014.
Yeah,
Yeah, December 2014.
And it's been an annual thing, has it, since then?
Sort of. Yeah,
More or less. We did a couple in December, and then we realised that actually we were getting fewer schools interested than we wanted, and we asked around and said what would be the best time for schools, and they said late March, early April, because then you miss all the exams, but watch out for Easter.
yeah, we weren't getting, as Mike says, weren't getting the schools that we wanted, because that was the focus of what we really wanted to do, was to get the kids involved. And the yes, we moved the date to April, so we had about 18 months between, or 13 months between them, a couple of them, and has worked out really well. It's so successful that we actually had to go from 1 day to 2 days.
Right. Okay. And so the actual events then. So what? How much organisation does that take?
A lot.
I
Yeah, we
thought you were going to say nothing. We just sort of rock up on the day.
yeah. No, it sort of starts in sort of July, August time when we start coming up with challenges for the next competition, and then you have to get in August. You have to get the momentum flowing, and then it's October when they apply. So it's kind of an all year round thing with a few months off just to take stock.
Yeah,
Um,
August or September they apply, Mike.
I thought it was. Oh, I think it's moved around. It's moved around.
That's right.
But yeah, we have meetings once a week, which may involve beer,
Why not?
and apart from that, it's a lot of organisation of course building and logistics.
Okay. So wow, this takes a while to achieve. Um, and you've moved it. So you have 2 days because of numbers that are applying for it, or
Yeah, we were getting 150 people apply to bid to enter.
wow.
150 teams, and it was a case of, well, we can't really knock 150 down to 36 at the time, so and then we thought we can just about fit 38 in, um, but then we just realised it's got to go to 2 days.
So how many people are allowed to take part then in total? Then?
It's two lots of 38, so it's 76 teams. But the teams range from one person on their own to school teams, which can be sort of 24 people sometimes.
Wow, there's a lot of people in a building at once. Then, yeah.
Oh, yes.
So yeah, even that this goes back to that what you mentioned with the jams catering. You've got to sort all that out, I suppose, as well as the events. It's a whole thing. Massive undertaking, really. So is it just yourselves that organise it, or do you get other people involved as well?
Up until year five, which was 2019, it was just the two of us doing the actual organising of it, until it got to the day where we had volunteers, marshals, judges, helpers, etc.
Mm.
In 2015, we I decided that I'd spent pretty much every night for about 3 or 4 months building courses in year
Oh, it was
five.
2019, wasn't it? 2019, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and it just exhausted me, absolutely exhausted me. Plus, I was writing the app to actually do the score sheet, um, and Mike and I discussed it before the event, and we were going to announce that we were going to take a break for a year. Um, then, unbeknownst to us, a load of the people taking part in the event got together, built us a couple of trophies, and gave us some vouchers and pictures and stuff to say, well, thank you for organising it. And they didn't want it to end. So we had so many volunteers that year saying, "Yeah, we'll build courses. If you can't do it yourself, we'll build courses. We'll build courses. We'll help run the event." And so that's what we were planning to do for 2020, the disaster zone event.
Yes.
How
Yes.
appropriate.
Yeah.
Yes. So it's had to change this year, obviously.
Yes, for obvious reasons. A few weeks before the event, things were looking a little ropey. We had, because we've got a lot of international teams, we had to make a decision to postpone it. We didn't know whether it be for a few weeks, a few months, or what, but we felt it was right at the time, and turned out to be absolutely right to postpone it.
Totally. Yeah. Absolutely. Um, so you're saying international entries. Would that have been the case for the physical events as well then?
Oh yeah, yeah. We have quite a few applications from overseas. So I think the most I think we had, was it something like five from Nigeria this year.
Right, yeah,
What,
five teams, yeah.
one from South Korea, which was my favourite. Um, one from India, and we have a team who come over from the States for a few. They come over for a few years now. Yeah, we've had teams from Europe, Africa, Asia.
Malaysia,
It's been a big thing.
China,
Oh, China, yeah.
France, Germany, Norway, Ireland. Uh,
Oh, we had a Malaysian team last year, which was really good.
yeah, yeah. So basically, somehow they've got to know it all around the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Such is the power of the net, isn't it? Really, it's
Yeah.
Tell them about Turkey.
Oh yeah, Turkey. So a Turkish team came. I think it was to the 2018 event, and they came again to 2019, and they asked us if we would mind them running a Pie Wars Turkey.
okay.
So they did. They got their event done this year just before COVID hit.
And were you invited over or
We weren't, but I think we could have gone over if we wanted to.
right?
um, but they sort of sent us updates and pictures and that kind of thing, and it looked like it was a great success.
It's a slightly different event from our Pie Wars, from the UK Pie Wars, in the fact that the teams are given a kit to build their robot from,
Okay,
and they have lessons and things like that. And it's actually school kids, college kids who are running the event.
that's pretty cool.
Yes, very, very cool.
So what kind of ages from then?
I think they're sort of late teens to 18.
Yeah,
And so they've organised it and competed as well. It's brilliant. I mean, it's going to become a global thing over time, isn't it? You get this. Well, it is global already with the entrance. When I saw the virtual Pie Wars and I saw, the different nationalities there, I thought, oh, okay, this will be because they can submit from anywhere in the globe to this virtual event. But
Yeah,
no, it's you get that anywhere. They're coming all over and visiting, which is
yeah, they
fantastic.
fly over. It's amazing. There's the team from America, from the New Mexico Community College. I think that's what it's called,
yeah,
and
that's it.
and they're from disadvantaged backgrounds, and they raise their own money to build the robot, but then they raise their own money to pay for the flights and that kind of thing. It's amazing. Kerry, the guy who sort of shepherds them through it and leads the team, but he leads the team, but he lets them get on with the robot building. He sort of just shepherds them through it, and he's absolutely inspirational guy.
Yes, absolutely. And so are the kids, the young adults who are competing in that team. They've I'm just amazed at them. The way they're pushing their education forward themselves. They are they're part of the country they come from. It's actually a poor part of the poor state. So they basically have nothing. But they do this event and they have amazing, really amazing. They well deserve to get. good jobs at places like Microsoft and Google and Facebook and that sort of thing because of their attitude, their ability. Lovely people.
The ability thing is amazing, isn't it? So, for anyone who isn't aware of what Pi Wars is, the format itself, what happens over the course of the day then?
So they first of all they apply to enter, and then we select the teams, and then they get about 5 to 6 months to build. On the day they arrive, they sign in, and they get given a pit room, a work room, to be based out of for the day. And then there's 7 challenges over the day. There's sort of 6 obstacle types, robotic skills type challenges, and then there's Pi Noon, which is about bursting balloons on the other robot's back.
They know about the challenges before the event, or most of them.
Yeah,
Um, Depending on the course, we give them a certain amount of detail. The obstacle course we always keep quite secret. Um, some of the challenges, yeah, we don't tell them much. We give them some hints about what it's going to be like. But others, we give them full details because um, as the years have gone by, the courses are actually getting more and more challenging. Each year, we discover that actually they can achieve more than we thought they would, just from our own sort of guessings of how people would compete at things. The famous one was uh, the first year we had Skittles. We thought the robots would drive into the ball and push it towards the Skittles and hopefully knock one or two over. Little did we know, Hitch and Hackspace, they built this contraption that spun up wheels um, and projected the ball at about 70 miles an hour towards the Skittles. They were spinning so the wheels were spinning so fast they had put
Wow.
Kevlar string around the wheels to stop the rubber from flying apart.
yes, that was the year we set the course up, and they looked at it, and it was in front of a window for a bit of light, and they said to us, "You haven't got anything behind the course. Don't you think that would be a good idea?" And suddenly you heard this death hum as the flywheels span up, and we were at the front desk, and it was like, "What the heck is that?"
That was our introduction to how ingenious our competitors were going to be, and every year they get better and better and better. As you probably saw in the videos from Virtual Pi Wars, uh, they are just yeah getting stupidly difficult.
What's been really nice actually is that Hitch and Hackspace, the people who built that machine, we got to know them really well. And one guy, Dave Booth, lives quite close to us, and he's come on board this year as a sort of third organizer.
So yes, we have expanded.
Well, you need to. It sounds. I mean, two of you to organise this huge event every year. It takes up time, as you say. So you changed the event to virtual this year, and how did that change in how it was run? So people submitted the YouTube videos. Were they doing the robots doing the similar sort of things, and you had to kind of judge it based on what they were doing in the video?
Yeah, no, it wasn't. They weren't competing on courses because Pi Wars was cancelled fairly late. Most roboteers had finished their robots, and we didn't want all that work to go to waste. We didn't know when the next event was going to be, but so we thought just to keep some momentum in the event, we would have a sort of a show and tell of the robots, people showing what it could do or whatever. And as you saw, the videos were some very amusing and very good videos of how they've gone about designing it, challenges they've had, lessons they've learned, that sort of thing. Uh, it was sort of it was meant as a sort of bit of a stopgap, I suppose.
And I suppose it's an unknown really for next year, is it? At the moment.
We're in preliminary talks with the venue, and we don't quite know what's going to happen when at the moment, because obviously, because Cambridge University has announced that they're not having lectures in person for at least the first term.
Oh yes,
So
yes.
it's a question of, will the university be ready for us in March, or do we need to push it? It's all up in the air at the moment.
Yep, it's a complete unknown, isn't it? And that goes with everything that we're doing at the moment. How is lockdown affecting yourselves then? Regards to we're kind of going outside the Raspberry Pi community now, just in your day to day lives. Regards your work and sort of getting out and about. How are you all coping with it?
It is hard. I am working full time. In fact, we had a release that was meant to go out basically as lockdown started. That was delayed because of various issues. One of which was that everybody, the whole company of about 50,000 of us, they had to get us all working from home within a matter of days, which they succeeded in doing amazingly, and they've done absolutely brilliantly. Um, but yeah, it's not easy working at home, not seeing people. I mean, I'm a complete introvert. If I don't see anybody for weeks on end, I'm usually okay. But with the issues going on with COVID, yes, I can cope with that. But with an excuse and politics coming in here, with the one rule for them, one rule for us, the lying, the cheating, the etc. going on, and also the issue with George Floyd, that really affected me. Um, just the unfairness of it all, on top of the unfairness of Cummings and etc. It that got to me a couple of weeks back. Been okay before that, but
I think it's the sacrifices that everyone has made, isn't it? And like you say, kind of the one rule for one and another rule for another.
all of us have made. But the ones that are making decisions just break it and think it's fine um, to drive when you can't see, or try and drive when you can't see, and go to your second home when everybody's told not to go to a second home. That sort of thing. It's infuriating.
Oh, totally. It puts everyone in that frame of mind of, okay, I'll just go and do this and that, and then then we start to potentially escalate something that we've been controlling or attempting to control for the
Mm.
last few months.
Yes. Now I do know that a vast majority of people are still going to isolate. They're still going to keep away from others, but there are going to be a lot of people, and I do see them who just think, "Oh, be it," and just go out, carry on as though nothing's happened, um, which risks us all.
Yeah, and I think, for myself, think I said to somebody the other day, I alternate between loving working from home all the time and hating every minute of it.
Yeah,
Um, and it's hard when you think to yourself, okay, I'm following the rules, and even allowing for the famous word unprecedented, even though it's unprecedented times, you sort of cringe whenever you hear of a decision or something that doesn't seem quite right, and suddenly you think, who's at the helm? Do I really trust them? And then when as soon as they start to lose trust, it's all over. But hopefully people will still do what's right.
I think from the people I'm talking to seem to be doing that. But it's it's when you see pictures of these packed beaches and you know the Dorset incident a couple of weeks back, and you think, okay, this is gonna be a second wave. And listening to interviews, I heard is it Dr. Hilary Jones on Good Morning Britain
Mhm.
saying about and that's not something I normally watch. I was just listening to clips on Twitter, um, talking about the NHS or the doctors are prepping for wave two. Um, and it's going to come, but you just don't want it to come in huge numbers. Really, that's why we've given up so much over the last few months, isn't it? Really, to help other people as well as ourselves.
Yeah, and then it goes and gets ruined by a selfish idiot at the top.
Yes, yes,
I think everybody, when they first heard, I think it was Boris Johnson said, we're trying to keep it to 20,000, and you think that's a lot of people, and then suddenly we're at twice that, and you think that was a really, really bad idea to say that.
yes.
And the fact that we've been above the whole of Europe put together, and we're starting easing. It's yeah.
It's scary, isn't it? Really,
It is
when
scary.
when you're
I
thinking
just
of it
don't
like,
think the people at the top know what they're doing. The people in charge,
it doesn't seem so, does it?
not at all. That's my politics coming in. Sorry.
No, no, absolutely. It's good to know. I mean, we've chatted on the podcast with different people in different countries to get a feel for how they've had to lock down, and I know how we've had to lock down here. So it was interesting to see how you're coping with it. So Mike and Tim, what are your jobs then on a day to day?
I'm a software developer. I do web developing with Cold Fusion of all things, and SQL, and I work for an educational charity.
I'm a performance architect. I test software systems, performance test software systems, to see that they can cope with the expected load that is put on them, which for us is many hundreds of thousands um, in America. And when updates are made to the software, we have to ensure that it will continue to function correctly. Less functional testing, more performance testing of everything put together, because the developers develop everything in independently. Yes, they do functional tests, but it's only when you actually get all of them running at the same time you find where things clash, find where things don't work together.
Okay, so what I tend to do in the podcast, I always ask people about when they were growing up. I like to get a feel for what was this the path that they were expected? Was IT their thing? So when you were growing up, what were you wanting to do?
I was a very, this sounds awful. I was a very lonely child, but it was intentional. I liked my computers. I liked my games, but not so much addicted to them as wanting to know how they worked. And then that continued through school, and I eventually ended up going to university and studying computer science. So it's sort of been a one track thing for me, but um, because the technology's changed so much, you honestly can't see coming what you end up doing.
Yes. Yeah. So computer science. I mean, what were you sort of doing with that? The programming aspect, was it kind of Fortran and things like that? Was it?
It was Pascal
Oh, Pascal. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
an absolute monster of a language called Minerva, which was a functional programming language.
I think I've heard
Um,
of that.
it's horrible.
Well,
Wouldn't wish it on my
Pascal
worst.
was.
I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. And my third year project ended up being in Java 1.0.
Oh wow. Yeah, Pascal I had a little dabble with at university as well, and I just did not. I couldn't. I wasn't there to do a computer science degree. I was doing like a business studies thing that had computing thrown into it,
Mm.
and I couldn't grasp it. It wasn't for me. It was only because I'm a Windows guy. So when I could finally drag things around and click things, I kind of understood it a bit more than sort of command line interface. Unfortunately.
Yeah, I've actually coming at it from the other point of view. Mine was mostly about 2/3, 3/4 computer science, but with some business thrown in.
Business, was it worth it, that element?
Yeah, I ended up. I'm at the moment I'm a developer, but the development team is under the marketing department, so actually I sort of understand that part of it. And I actually quite enjoy learning a business and finding out how I can help to make it better.
So it was worthwhile in the end.
Yeah.
How about yourself, Tim?
Um, I had not a clue when I started doing A levels of what I wanted to do. I originally thought I would be doing some sort of chemical research. That was chemistry was what I was really interested in when I started A levels. I'd always dabbled with computers. I I don't know. I just sort of understood them. I spent more times actually hacking games than I did actually playing the games, finding out how they worked, and adventure games, downloading the code, decompiling them, and that sort of thing. But I had no thoughts that I would actually get into computing. I was actively discouraged by my mother from doing it. She didn't want me to be a computer bore, she said. Um, but having started A levels, I was doing four A levels at the time. It was just too much time doing courses and stuff like that, doing my work. So I decided eventually to give up the chemistry, carried on with the physics, and did maths, further maths, level maths, um, step level further maths, S level maths, further maths. You know, get the idea.
Mm.
I then went to
Maths, was it?
yeah. I then went to university to do mathematical engineering, and that was all sides of engineering, mechanical, you name it, all sides parts of engineering, but from a mathematical point of view. Um, Bits I really enjoyed were the computing side and the modelling side. So that's what I eventually went into. Got employed by BT, my first job. Um, got into performance testing then, but performance testing of telephone networks. Moved away for a while, and eventually got back into performance testing via a totally different route. And yeah, that's the bit I like about the job is the when things don't perform, you've got to actually find out why they don't perform. So it's solving a puzzle. I like solving puzzles. And that's what I do with the Raspberry Pi. Is I have ideas of what I want to do, and I have to solve a puzzle of how do I actually achieve this, having very little knowledge about electronics.
Well, that's the beauty of it, isn't it? Again, like we say, it's not just programming. It can be used as a desktop machine. It can be used now. It's all the power it's getting with the, version 4. You can use it as an electronic device. All these various things. It's so versatile in what it can do, and it brings back this whole ethic of the bedroom coder, doesn't it? Which we had in the 80s, which kind of disappeared over time.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what we need to get back to. We need to have people who really want to do what they're doing. There's an awful lot these days of people ending up in professions that they didn't think they would, and not doing it very well sometimes. And whereas computing, you need to be top of your game really to be successful at it.
Going back to the youth then, and the bed. Let's talk about the bedroom coders. You mentioned early computers. What were your fave computers back in the day?
ZX Spectrum. My first
Your specky
computer,
guy, yeah.
yeah, my first computer was a VIC-20. I wanted a ZX Spectrum, but my parents bought me a VIC-20 because it had a proper keyboard. But they didn't buy the tape player with it,
Did
so
they not? Oh God,
you couldn't actually save.
how does that work then?
You just had to type it in every time.
Oh jeez.
Yeah. It took me a long time to persuade them. Um, I've still got it. It's in the loft. Um, Then I went to an Atari ST, preferred that to the Amiga.
Oh, right. That's fighting talk.
It is.
I'm an Amiga man.
No, the Amiga was a brilliant machine. I just chose the Atari side for some reason. Um, then I got back into doing more programming when I got the Cyan 5. I had a Cyan 3 and the Cyan with the various Cyan, different ones before that. Um, I have a very poor memory, part of being dyslexic, and I used all these machines for just to jot down notes for myself to remember things. Um, and I developed some software for the Cyan 5 and sold that. Had a little business going and eventually was employed by them, by Symbian, for a little while. Sort of turned a bit of a hobby um, into a job. Um, now, stuff I do at work's nothing to do really with what I do at home with the pie. Um, it just supplements it. It makes life worthwhile.
And Mike, what about yourself? What were your uh,
Childhood
memories of
computers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Started out with the Dragon 32,
Yay! Love it.
which we purchased the day before the company went bust. So that was a win. But I think my favourite one was probably the BBC Master, the one with the extra keyboard on the side. That was a fantastic machine. And then I moved up to an Archimedes A3000, and I loved those machines. I actually really loved Riscos at the time. That was a really good operating system. Um, Now I'm a Windows guy. I can't use Riscos anymore, um, but yeah, I love the games on it, but I also love the opportunities of the music creation app you could get for the Archimedes. That was brilliant. It wasn't until I went to university that I actually got a 486 PC.
See, I wouldn't see you as a Windows guy, Mike. That's quite interesting. That when you say a Windows guy, is it just really it's the OS that's there for you, I
Yeah,
suppose?
it's the one that I happen to use. I mean, I did my first job was on Unix, um, doing Infomix 4GL. Um, and so I sort of got an appreciation of the command line and that kind of thing. So when the Pi came along, it was, oh, I'll go back to that. Um, and the Pi is sort of, it's taught me electronics, but it also taught me a bit of Python. And now I've come full circle on that because I'm writing bits of Python for work. So that's been really useful.
And outside of computing, then what are your things that you do to kind of kick back and just chill? What other interests do you have?
Raspberry Pi.
Oh, the pie is the thing, is it? So Tim, I know you're a bit of a Star Trek fan, though, yeah,
Oh yeah, both of us are.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Because we got chatting the other day about the next gen, didn't we, on Twitter?
Yes, yes. I always loved the original series. Obviously not when it was first on because I wasn't born when it first came on. But I any sci-fi I really was into when I was a kid, and I loved the original series. It was just something special. So when
So whenabouts did you get into it then, roughly? Do you know?
I must have been about 10, so that no earlier than that must have been because it was years before. Yeah, the first film came out in '79. Um, and I'd been watching it for many years before that. So yeah, it must have been mid '70s.
Right. So I got into the original series in about '84. I think the BBC had just started rerunning them. Or sorry, I say rerunning. That's American, isn't it? Repeating them. Sorry. Let's get it right. And that was it for me. I'd seen it as a kid. I'd seen bits and bobs. I think probably with my dad, and just got into it then. So the original series was always the thing for me. And then all of a sudden, this other series was coming along, and it was like, oh, I'll give it a go. Not too sure about it, but it seemed to do quite well in the end.
Yeah, it was good. I liked the next gen. I've since been working from home, I've actually been watching um, the Next Gen series in spare minutes here and there. I've got to the end of all 7 seasons, and
Oh, you've got to the end. Oh,
I have.
crikey.
Yeah, the first season was a little ropey in a few places. By the time we got to season 7, they were really in their stride. The stories were great, the characters were great, the special effects and the scenery were much better than before.
I can remember getting to the end of All Good Things and actually choking up.
Yeah, ditto, ditto.
I mean, I've been rewatching because this is what I put on Twitter. I responded to you watching them, and I said, "Oh yeah, this one will remind you of of our times or something." It was about it was a virus that
Yes,
spread through the
yeah,
ship, wasn't it? And but then you said, "Oh yeah, I'm watching 2 or 3 a day." I'm still on season 3, so I'm still way behind. I've got a bit to go. But luckily, I'm hitting a good season now, finally.
Yeah.
But I did appreciate season 2 a little bit more than I did originally. So I've not seen these probably for about 25 years, I would say. Been a while. It doesn't seem like it, but but you know, it was one of those things when it was so. You know, back when it first came out, it was coming out on video, and you could hire them from the local video
Oh yeah,
store. So
two at a time.
yeah, and you'd I'd watch them and rewatch them, and it's like the first 10 episodes I must have seen so many times, but there's so many bad ones in that batch. And then I started buying the videos as well, the VHS tapes,
ditto.
and
Yeah.
yeah, did you get a complete collection? I did.
No, I only went for episodes that I really enjoyed. So basically, the anything to do with the Borg, um, and things like that. But
Oh,
yeah,
I,
I was a fool. I bought them all, and I threw them away about 3 years ago because we had our loft done. I had to put them in a skip. It's
yeah,
like, here they go. You know, all that
there's my memories.
time. Yeah, yeah. I took a picture of them from a friend from back home in Barnsley, and I said, "Look at this. I want to do this," because he just remembered me as this guy buying these tapes. You know, I had the original series on VHS as well,
yeah.
and but I lost faith with it. I must admit, on season 2, I was losing it, and then this guy sent me a copy of Best of Both Worlds before it was shown in the UK. It was some copy that had been recorded off American telly, and we sat down in our first year at uni, and the guys in the shared accommodation. We sat down and watched it, and we were like, "Okay, this is getting interesting. Maybe we should keep watching for a bit." It totally changed everything, really. I think that episode, and
Yeah,
obviously that the ramifications have still been felt with the Picard series, aren't they?
Yes, yeah.
Which was a joy to watch. I don't know about yourselves, how you
Loved
felt
it.
about that.
Absolutely loved it.
I still haven't finished watching it. I'm terrible. Um,
Oh, no spoilers then. We'll keep
no.
quiet.
Mike, got one thing to say to you:
What?
Discovery.
Discovery? I've been notorious for not watching Discovery for some reason. I still don't quite know why I haven't.
It's brilliant. I love Discovery. Really is good.
Yeah, again, I was skeptical about this because I didn't enjoy the films, the reboot films.
Hmm.
So I was like, oh, I'm not too sure. But then I thought, do you know what? I've not seen a Star Trek series now for years. Let's give it a go. And was very pleasantly surprised with it. And of course, when I won't give much away, Mike, but you probably know bits that happen. But to see the shift in the first season when they have, do you know much about it? I'm not going to give away spoilers, am I?
I've sort of seen the first 2/3 of the first season.
So do you know about the Mirror Universe?
No.
Oh God, sorry.
Don't worry, don't worry. I'm going to watch it all eventually.
Right, well that's good. I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
And then season 2, obviously, I won't go into that either. But that was it was a joy to watch because of the references to the original series and stuff like that. I don't know, Tim, what were your thoughts on?
Yeah, my favourite character of all time has got to be, uh, yeah, Michael. Yeah,
Arek Spock's from the animated series.
Spock.
Joking.
Spock. I remember it when I was at school, senior school. Um, I was asked to write about my hero, and I had no heroes at the time. I couldn't think of any. They said, "Well, what about your favourite football player?" I hate football. I don't understand it. Sports person? No, I can't think of anybody. And eventually, the only thing I could think of actually that was my hero. The person I wanted to be most like was Spock.
Right. Do you know who I would have written about?
Yeah.
Shatner.
Oh, you
Kirk.
like Kirk, did you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Having rewatched the original series before I went on to Next Gen, I'd have flipped that now. As I've matured and grown, I'm less of an action man than I used to be. Yeah. So I actually was just reading before we got on. It's the 29th anniversary today of the fifth film, The Final Frontier.
I went to see that with my mum. I loved every minute of it, and now I think I'm so ashamed that I loved every minute of it.
I like them all, especially the motionless picture. The first one, I just loved that film. Still,
Do you know what? It's one of the last films I've seen at the cinema. Funnily enough, they did a 40th anniversary
ah, yeah.
showing at the Prince of Charles in Leicester Square
All
Mm.
right.
in London. Yeah, and I went along thinking there'll just be me sat in there,
Oh
and it was
yeah, right.
packed, absolutely packed. Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was all right. You know,
It's Was that the special edition version or the?
no, because so I'm getting geeky now. So the special edition version, the extra bits aren't filmed in 16 mm. They're only for VHS.
Ah,
Yeah, so it's the original cut,
Yeah,
and so yes, it was shown from the 16 mm. So it was scratchy as hell, but great. It was like I knew what to expect. I wasn't expecting a big blockbuster movie. I just knew I'd sit there for hours watching them fly across Vija.
yeah, yeah.
Nothing more
and
was
then
going to
again.
happen. And then again, and everyone would be staring out at the screen going, "Ooh, wow, that's pretty big." And yeah, so it was all right.
I was never that much of a fan of the original series, but my favourite film is Wrath of Khan. I just love that
That's a
film.
corker, isn't it? Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
That's from an original story. Star Trek, when some of their best is when they reference um, other previous stories, like the Mirror Universe, and it all seems to tie in somehow. Just a little, yeah,
Well, this is the thing. The references in the Picard series, right down to the fact that you go to the Measure of a Man.
yeah,
The
Yeah.
episode from series 2 has been quite, a big part of the Picard series, and I was a little bit disappointed with that.
Discovery, the cage.
Yes, in season 2, yeah, all these sort of things, which is great, and we're probably going to get more of that, aren't we, as we go along with the new series they've announced, and so it's quite an interesting era now for Trek. Um, just blossoming again and coming back.
Well, they've got quite a few series. Obviously, they've got Discovery, Picard. There's the cartoon series, which is what's that one? That's the
Lower Decks.
Lower Decks. That's it. They've got the new one with Pike. Um, what's that one called? I saw what it was called earlier today.
Oh,
Uh,
Strange New
that's
Worlds.
it. Strange New One.
Good title.
Yes. Um, so yeah, they really have rebooted.
And then there's going to be a Section 31 series as well, isn't there?
Apparently so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's been rumoured for years, I think, but I'm not sure if they're doing that one, are they?
Still in the background.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. That's one of those I'm not too sure about. It's kind of like, well, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Section 31 is it's not the Roddenberry Star Trek. that we all sort of remember from the original series, where everything is proper and fair and etc. Section 31, they do things that are not particularly nice. Um, so
To be interesting.
it'll be interesting, yes, yeah. Whether it's popular because of that, I don't know. Just really depends what they do.
And also when they get a chance to film them, I suppose, at the minute, as we go back to the
Yeah.
COVID situation, Picard Series 2 is green lit. When will they get to do it? Who knows? And the Strange New World. So
Well, space is big. They can separate themselves quite a long way in space. So.
yeah, green screen it all, can't they? Yeah, actually, I was reading an article about this. There's going to be a lot of kind of space series, and there's another genre they mentioned because they can green screen it all, so they could
Yeah.
actually just film it all separately and just cobble it all together at the end.
Yeah, yeah.
It'd still be lacking a bit, won't it? So let's think then. So to wrap up, um, what's your favourite Star Trek series?
I have a real soft spot for Deep Space Nine. I don't know why. It's to me, it's slightly darker, but it's still got that hopeful edge that Roddenberry brought in to start with. I think later ones, even Voyager, it started to get a bit darker, and it lost some of the, I don't know, the optimism of Roddenberry.
For me, very hard to say. The original series because of Spock. Um, Next Gen because they brought back Star Trek. Deep Space Nine, I didn't watch at all. I when it was on, I was very busy with things like getting married and what have you. Um, Voyager,
Oh, honestly,
yeah, no.
oh,
Priorities.
blimey.
Voyager, I got into Voyager. I liked Voyager. There were a lot of great stories in Voyager. Um, and the recent ones, I have really enjoyed both Picard and Discovery. Um, yeah, they're a bit darker, but I don't know, I just really like them. Enterprise, I never really got into Enterprise. I think because of the captain in it. Oh boy.
That's a reference, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, Tim, you've got to pick one. Come on, I'm going to make you.
Oh, the original, the original.
The original, right? Fine.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a tough one. I know. Me, yeah, it's a tough one. But I'd go with Deep Space Nine, I think, as well. But Mike, it was always seen as a bit of a runt, but it was the first one to do the story arcs really well.
That's true.
And
That is true. I have just started watching that. I'm now in season 2.
yeah, yeah, and it's good. Um, did you get into Babylon 5 out of interest?
Yes, I have them all on DVD.
Yeah, Babylon 5 was on when I was at university. I was, for my shame, president of the Star Trek Society.
Right.
I know.
So we're not allowed to watch Babylon 5. No,
Oh,
we
but
can't have.
well, we sort of morphed into the Modern Science Fiction Society, so we watched Bab 5 as well. I always liked Bab 5 because you always felt like it was going somewhere. It was episodic, but as it grew, it
Yeah,
got more as a story arc, and then they kind of messed up
exactly.
season 5. But
That was where
um,
that's what made it different from a lot of Star Trek. I know there was a little story arc in some of them. Next gen, there were sort of a few things, but yeah, with Babylon 5, much more of a story arc.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, ultimately, I think there's one part of it where it suddenly kicks in with I'm going to pronounce his name wrong now. Is it Stravinsky? J.
oh, J.
Michael
Michael Straczynski, yeah,
Yeah, where he just writes them all, doesn't he? Then from one episode from somewhere in season 2 or something,
yeah.
all the way through, with occasional one or two break towards the end for someone else to do it, probably season 5. But that was one again. Whereas like first season, I was like, oh, this is dreadful. Really is dreadful.
Yeah.
But then season 2, it starts to up its game, and then all of a sudden the shadows, isn't it? Yeah,
Yeah.
the shadows come in,
Oh yeah, they
and
were,
it's
they were
like,
my favourite in that.
yeah, it's like, wow, bloody hell. And I've got to go back and watch those. Actually, I got those on DVD as well. I'm the same.
Have
I'm
you
the
been
same.
watching The Expanse?
Right, yeah, that's interesting you mentioned that, because I did actually look at that the other day, but I wasn't in the mood to sit down for long and think. So I should do, because I've heard very good things about it.
Yeah, you should. You should. It is very.
Yeah, pour some time into it. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
is it going to get me from the start then?
Um,
Does it take a little while to get into it and the characters,
it
or
takes a little while. I've watched from season 1, but then when season 4, yeah, well, season 4 came out
it's Amazon, isn't it?
on Amazon. Yeah, I started watching from season 1 again to basically just remind myself. And there was so much that I didn't get on the first viewing of it that I got from the second viewing, having seen a lot later on, seeing where characters came from. And have you seen the Orville?
A couple, yes, yes.
That is very. It's more original Star Trek and next gen Star Trek than the modern Star Treks.
Didn't they have Marina Sirtis in one?
They've had all sorts of Star Trek actors in it. They had one episode where they had um, the two doctors from was it two, yeah, two characters from two different episodes in the same episode. So sorry, two characters from the different Star Trek seasons. Yeah, so they are feeding off the Star Trek sort of.
And where's that available then?
Um,
Is it on which channel is it on, or is it web only?
um, it's on my now. Web only. No, I think it has been on TV, UK TV, but I can't remember where because I've seen it elsewhere.
I'll have to try and track it down, do some searching.
Yeah.
Chaps,
Yeah.
it's been a real pleasure chatting to you. Where, if people want to get in touch with you, what social handles do they need to contact you on?
I'm at Recantha, Recantha, and I'm on Twitter and Facebook. You can find me like that.
I'm geeky_Tim on Twitter. I try and stick to tech stuff, but recently I've been straying a little into political stuff. I will try and move away from it again once.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I must admit, in the last few weeks, I've retweeted more political stuff than I would normally do.
yeah,
Through sheer anger.
yes, exactly. Facebook, I rarely do Facebook anymore, and I don't really do any of the other social things. Twitter's the only real one.
Twitter's the thing. Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah, as I say, it's been a real pleasure. It's been nice to. Something's drops upstairs. Right. It's I don't know what that was. I'll check it out in a minute. Yeah, a real pleasure to chat to you, and thanks for taking the time out to do it.
Thanks for inviting us.
Yes, yeah, no problem.